It was 120 years ago that water started flowing from Kansas City's first fountain. And over the years to follow, several other fountains were added to the city of Kansas City. And Kansas City became known as the City of Fountains. Throughout the nation, around the world, we are the City of Fountains. In 1973, an organization was formed called the City of Fountains Foundation, a not-for-profit volunteer group that would assist the park board in both building fountains and maintaining fountains throughout Kansas City, Missouri. In 1983, that partnership came together, the City of Fountains and the Board of Park Commissioners, and built the fountain that we stand here before today. It was the first fountain north of the river, just 39 years ago, for those who remember that being here, and I see several people this morning that were here 39 years ago. And we'll hear more about the history of this fountain from our honored guest this morning, Mrs. Gorman. The partnership that was established in 1973 is hosting the event this morning, and we're glad you're all here to join us this morning. So welcome to Fountain Day 2022. And now, Eric Sobey, Darlington Clark, Christina Burton, and Allison Joan, the Starlight Performers.
Rubble, out of the smoke, out of our night of struggle, can ye see a ray of hope, one pale thin ray, reaching for the day.
A beautiful city, yes we can, yes we can, we can build a beautiful city, not a city of angels, we can build a city of man. We may not reach the ending, but we can start.
We can start.
Slowly but truly building, brick by brick,
by brick,
heart by heart. We can learn, we start learning,
We can build a beautiful city. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. We can build a beautiful city, not a city of angels, but we can build a city of man.
when your trust is all but shattered.
When your faith is all but killed,
You can give up bitter and battered.
or you can slowly start to build.
We can build a beautiful city. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can build a beautiful city.
Not a city of angels, but finally a city of man. We can build
A beautiful
a
city.
beautiful
Yes,
city.
we can.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
we can.
We can build a beautiful
a
city.
beautiful
Yes,
city.
we can.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
we
We can build a beautiful city. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
we can. We can build
a beautiful
a
city.
beautiful
Yes, we
city.
can.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much, our professional performers from Starlight Theater. When we contacted Starlight Theater to see if they'd be willing to send some of their performers this morning, they were quick to say yes. especially when we told them that we'd be honoring Miss Anita Gorman. Mrs. Gorman has been a long-term supporter of Starlight Theater. She helped him through some difficult times to challenge the budget and make those performances continue in that great tradition in Starlight Theater in Swope Park. And so they were glad to come forward, and thanks again for performing this morning. Thank you very much. I mentioned earlier the City of Fountains Foundation. They've been around for 49 years. They're again formed in 1973, and we have several members of that board here today. I want to start with Jim Fitzpatrick, our president. And then the rest of the board members, kind of wave your hands. I see a few people there. Casey Cassius, Pat Dunn. There's Alexis and Jocelyn and Joni are back there by the tent, so please check out the tent and learn more about our City of Fountains and some of the publications and information that they have. Being the president of the park board is a big job. It's a prestigious position to have throughout the city. It's got a long history, a tradition, and someone needs to have a deep understanding of the city to be a park board president. They also have to have a passion for parks and care about what they offer throughout our city. In a normal year, the park board president is a big job. The last couple of years with the pandemic and the budget cuts, filling some leadership position has been a challenge, and Mayor Quentin Lucas made a good call when he named Jack Holland as the president of the park board. Mr. Holland.
Thank you, Mark, and welcome everybody to Fountain Day. I'd like to introduce a number of key people who are here that make this whole effort worthwhile. City Council persons, Teresa Lohr, Kevin O'Neill, Heather Hall. I'd also like to recognize some past Parks Commissioners, Alan Dillingham, Dave Mecklenburg, and Ann Garney, all of whom have contributed greatly to the success and the maintenance of the Parks and Recreation Department of Kansas City. I'd also like to introduce current Parks Commissioners who make all of our jobs much easier. Scott Wagner and Alex Perez, both from the Northland, by the way. And finally, I'd like to introduce our new Parks Director, Chris Cotton, and our new Parks Deputy Director, Brad Clay. All of these folks work very hard to make your Parks and Recreation Department one of the greatest in the country, and certainly your fountains the greatest in the country. Now back to Mark.
I'm going to introduce somebody else who's a former, like myself, Park Director, Jerry Darter. Good to see you, Jerry. Thanks for coming out this morning. As I mentioned earlier, we're here to honor a very special individual. We all know her. So as people get up and they say, hey, listen, someone doesn't need an introduction, that's what they always say. Well, that's probably true, but she deserves an introduction. She has been in a leadership role with virtually every civic and community organization in Kansas City, Missouri, both north and south. She's led several capital campaigns that have brought referendums forward to bring funding for the park system, for the zoo, the Liberty Memorial, and the list goes on. I mentioned Starlight earlier. The zoo, of course, is also in Swope Park, National War I Museum, Liberty Memorial, the Civic Association, Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Salvation Army, and Missouri Department of Conservation, just to name a few. And the two organizations hosting us today, the City of Fountains Foundation, she led that organization for several years, and of course she was the chair of the park board for several years. The great lady, Anita B. Gorman.
This is an especially pretty day to me because when Gerald and I bought our first home just down the street here on Vivian Road in 1958, one of the neighbors came out and said, "Isn't it too bad that the southeast corner of North Oak and Vivian Road is going to be turned into a used car lot?" and we thought it was just a little bit too bad. And so we began to form a group of people that would oppose that, and it only took us 21 years from 1958 to 1979 to get that turned around. But we did do one good thing in that time too. We gathered together a group of people that were willing to work in the Northland for the betterment. And many of those people have already been promoted to glory, but some of them are here today, and they're the reason why we're going to be able to turn on this fountain. And I hope they'll stand or wave their hand when I name their names. Judy Chastain, Jerry Darter, John Dillingham, Charles and Patty Garney, Jackie Russell, Linda Ward, and Homer Williams. Those people are still our Northland leaders. We're lucky to have them. But when we finally convinced the Midwest Baptist Theological Seminary that we needed to have a fountain, they agreed that they would give 3.5 acres of ground to the park board if we would agree to raise the money for a fountain. And they also demanded $150,000 in escrow to prove that we were going to do it. And Charles Garney wrote that check for $150,000, and he's here today. He was co-chairman of the fundraising committee that built the fountain, and other people that were tremendously involved were as gift in kind, charging us nothing, was architect Homer Williams, who built and designed the largest fountain in this whole country that runs when the temperatures get below freezing level. And Homer's here today. And we needed a contract between our committee and the city government, which required a lawyer. And we had a lawyer who, again, gift in kind, and she's here today, Gwen Gorman Royal, and she's brought her grandson so that someday he will know to support this great project. I could go on and name other people. Harry Balthazar giving landscaping. Mark McHenry was our overseer. Jim Hamill was the artist that did the painting. And Hallmark Cards made 300 copies of them so that we would have the money from selling those paintings to pay for the endowment fund, which I'm happy to say has grown and continues to support this. We just spent $55,000 here to do some work on the fountain. So finally, the people from the Press Dispatch, that was a newspaper then, and the Kansas City Star covered this to the point where we were able in 4 years to turn on the Northland Fountain. So that's why we're here today, and I want to thank you all for being here, because I think it's time to turn it on. So.
Well, we are going to turn it on, but in order to turn it on, we need a magic touch. That's what we need. So this is a magic wand that we're going to present to you this morning, Mrs. Gorman, and that's the magic wand that will turn the fountain on. And we're going to need a little more help from our Starlight Performers. So if I can get Eric and Allison and Darrington And Christina, back up here again. You're going to help us, right? Yes. Okay. So these 4 young folks are going to help you, Mrs. Gorman, turn this fountain on.
Oh, so when I go like this.
I think that's how it works. Well, you guys, is that how it works?
Yeah, we're going to count it down.
They're going to count. You're going to do that. Make sure you point it the right direction. Okay.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.